Okay, let's talk a little bit more about this concept of receiving our kids, seeing them, and validating them. If you look at our cool little acronym here, you can tell I'm a person for acronyms. It's RSV. And if you think about the respiratory disease, RSV, that is when we can't breathe very well. And so what we're focusing on is creating an environment where our kids can breathe emotionally with us and in our space. And there is so much good new research coming out about how bonding it is to receive, see, and validate somebody well. That of all of the things that we could do as parents to create real connection with our kids or with other people, this is the most important. So we are going to give you a good amount of information on this, knowing that this is new to you, most likely. But please know how powerful this is to really create connection between you and your child. And all of the things that we're going to cover in this, we're also going to give you a handout to go with it in the resources. So be sure to print that out so that you have the rules for all of this and you can become really successful with it. So receive. We want our kids to feel received as individuals. Our kids are gifts, and sometimes we don't feel like they are because we're experiencing a lot of frustration with them. But each person is born with the question, do you see me? Do you love me? Am I special to you? Do I matter to you? These are questions that every child is born with. And the way that a parent answers it is either what's going to set them up for a healthy self-concept or create devastating effects. So will we receive our child as they are, or do we reject them? So some of us have kids that are different than us and a little bit harder to receive than maybe what we would want. So either they have a different temperament or different interests, or they have a diagnosis, or they have strong characteristics that aren't ones that we value. So a couple of examples of this is if you grew up in a home that was very intellectually savvy and you had a child who didn't want to go to university and pursue an education, or if you were a family that was really into sports and your child wanted to be into books and they didn't really fit the mold of your family. Do you receive your child as they are, or do you reject them? And another element of receiving your child is, do you receive what is good about them too, and not just the characteristics that are challenging to deal with, but do you have a focus on their goodness and on their potential and what they can become, and are sharing that insight with them, and that's what you really see. And so loving them for who they are and for who they can become, and making it clear that they being who they are is not rejected by you. Now we're going to put the S and the V together, seeing our kids and validating them. So our kids give us so many opportunities to see them in a way that is deeply bonding. Every emotion that they experience is an opportunity to see them. So this child here in this picture, he is having an emotional experience, and this would be such a good time for mom or dad to step in and show their child that they see them. Every emotion that they're experiencing, whether it's worried or stupid or disappointed or jealous or confident or brave or creative, are all opportunities to see our kids and to show them that we see them. So what we're going to invite you to do is start watching for your kids to have any sort of emotional experience, and then simply come to them and state that you're seeing that emotional experience. So if they come in and they look down after a day of work, a day of school, you say, wow, you're looking pretty down. Are you feeling worried about something or misunderstood? Or are you feeling embarrassed or disappointed? Tell me a little bit about what's going on. So we're seeing them in whatever emotional experience they're having. And next we're going into validating. So after we see our kids, there's a lot that we could do to mess that up. There's a lot that we could do to create a bonding experience. So if you're looking at this picture, we have two different images here. We have one where a child has told her mom something and the mom moved into lecture mode or teacher mode or problem solving mode, and it's caused this child to emotionally shut down. In the picture next to it, we have a mom who is slowing down and listening to her child, and this mom is going to follow the rules that we are going to share with you. These are rules for you when your child or somebody that you love is experiencing an emotion. And if you follow these rules, it actually releases bonding chemicals in their brain. So they feel deeply bonded to you, and those chemicals start to soothe the child or the individual, and that heals the emotion that they're talking about. So emotions are not bad. Emotions are an opportunity for deep connection. So here's our validation ground rules. First, no minimizing the situation by saying, this isn't that big of a deal, or you're overreacting, this isn't worth getting upset about. Remember the two people on the roller coaster? Both of their experiences were real, and even if it seems small to you, it feels big to your child, and they need to be validated and not minimized. And just think about yourself. If you were really upset about something that somebody did or something that happened, and you went to a loved one and were telling them the story of it, and they said, oh, that's not a big deal. Why are you being such a baby about it? Why are you overreacting? It would emotionally shut you down, and it would break the chance for connection. It actually creates a relationship rupture rather than bonding. Next is no correcting their emotions. You should not be mad. You should not be sad. You shouldn't be nervous. You're telling them in that moment that what they're feeling is wrong, and that creates a mistrust in their own heart about their own emotions, but it also creates another relationship rupture. Whereas if you were just pointing out the feeling, oh, I can see why you feel so frustrated about this. Lots of people would be frustrated in this situation too. Then that helps them really feel validated. Next, you're going to help them unpack their feelings even deeper. Oh, they will feel so seen by you, and their heart will feel so received, and they will feel so much more bonding and connecting if you can do this. Start doing a deeper dive. Are you feeling frustrated because you wanted to speak your truth and nobody would listen? That must feel overwhelming, or you might have been embarrassed or disappointed. You're just going to make some guesses about emotions that they might be feeling. And we have a whole list of emotions for you because we always talk about happy, mad, sad, and bad, and that's not enough emotions to discuss. There's so many more emotions. Sad is different than disappointed or ashamed or hopeless or abandoned. They're all very different emotions. And so help them feel really seen, help them understand themselves, help them feel understood by digging deeper into the emotion list. And if you're wrong, they'll tell you that you're wrong, and it's okay, but they will feel good that you've tried to see them. All right, next is no problem solving or cheering them up. If you have an idea, after the conversation is over, you can say something like, I have an idea. Let me know later if you're interested in it. In other words, give them an easy out to not asking you for advice, but you're also not shoving advice down their throat. People don't really appreciate that. We also don't want to try to just cheer them up, because it leaves the experience unprocessed, and the emotion buried alive never dies. The emotion is still in there. As humans, we need to process something to be able to get it out of our system and be able to move on. No siding with the enemy is the next one, where you start to point out what your child did wrong or imply that they were at fault. Even if you can clearly see that they are, they may be able to come to that conclusion on their own better if you give them an opportunity just to feel validated first. Next is not criticizing their actions. Why did you say fill in the blank? Why did you do that? So once again, implying that this is their fault, that they're a mistake, that they're failing, that they just can't get it right. That is going to cause relationship rupture and disintegration of their self-concept. Next is not switching topics of the conversation to something else or to yourself. Rather, keep the focus on their issues and on their feelings, and it's okay to just wait for the sharer to switch topics. You want them to feel really fully received and seen, and not like they can only share just a little bit of themselves and then you're moving on to the next thing because you're uncomfortable with them. But letting them sit and fully unpack their feelings gives them an opportunity to have their whole heart received by you. And good golly, that feels so good. Next is to try not to get defensive. When individuals are experiencing emotion, they are usually emotionally dysregulated and act a little different than they normally would. And it's okay for you to recognize that what they're experiencing, it isn't about you. It's about them and about their emotion and about their dysregulation. Now, you do get to have boundaries. If they start screaming at you or belittling you, berating you, you can step aside. You can step away and say, I'm happy to listen, when you can share respectfully. So you do get to have boundaries, but little slights, we can just let them go. Lastly is give them oxytocin. So oxytocin is a chemical released in the brain that feels good and happy. And these are often experienced when physical contact happens. And I know that some kids don't like physical contact. Some of our kids on the spectrum are not physical contact people. Yet let's find a way to still give some healthy oxytocin. So this could look like a hug, a pat on the back. You could just reach over and touch their shoulder gently or squeeze their hand, whatever they can tolerate. If they can tolerate more, let's do more hugs and more connection that way. Now, I know that our kids are hard to validate because sometimes their experiences that they're having are their own fault, or what we see them experiencing seems so ridiculous to us. But let's give them the opportunity to still feel received, seen, and validated. Now, lastly, I want to touch on the topic of relationship repair. John Gottman, who is a marriage and family researcher, says that even the best parents only follow these principles about 30% of the time. Only 30%. We are so far from being perfect, and that is okay. Because when we make a mistake, we get to do something called relationship repair, which is modeling for our kids something so beautiful and wonderful that they don't always experience in relationship. And that's when we recognize that our actions have hurt them. And even if we feel justified in our hurt, we feel remorse that there has been pain caused. And so you come to them, you state what you did that hurt them without justifying or explaining yourself. Let them know you are sorry, and then put a period right there. So I had an experience just this week, every week really, where I've done something, and in some of my interactions with my kids, I've hurt their feelings. So my son was telling me about something, and I didn't receive him well. And he was hurt, and he stormed off. And I saw that as an opportunity to connect with his emotion. And so I followed him, and I said, "Oh, bud, it looks like you are feeling small and misunderstood, and like you weren't received really well. And I'm really sorry that that happened. And I would like to make that up to you by listening now." And that was it. And that was a simple relationship repair. And he shared what he was feeling, and I worked better at following my own rules and receiving him well. And at the end, there was so much bonding, and we could feel all of those good, happy bonding chemicals being released because he felt seen, and he felt like he was important enough for an adult to say, "Hey, I was out of line there, and I would like to make it right with you. And making it right with you is more important than keeping my ego intact." And he felt that connection, and I felt that connection. And what's cool is that as we model this, we will see our kids start to mimic what we're doing. So we've been doing relationship repairs for years because we've been learning about this for years, and I mess up frequently enough to get lots of practice and have practiced with my kids, and I have seen them come to me now to make things right when there's been a rupture. And it's so cool to be able to see that. You guys, this is really about creating an emotionally safe place for your kids to be. And we will talk about how to create boundaries and better rules around behavior and everything to help shift behavior. But if you have all of those other letters of the Y's are working and you're missing this W, you're missing the best part of having relationships. And the experience that your kids have with you in your home will shape how they interact with every other human after this. So it's super critical that we practice all this and model all of this.